Welcome to Eternal Journey, the podcast.
What is up, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of Eternal Journey, the podcast that talks about all things eternal with a focus on limited play. I am your host, Caesar the Crowd Pleaser, also known as Jedi, and today we're going to be talking about a little bit about Gauntlet and primarily talking about climbing the ranked ladder, which is something that most people that play Eternal have aspirations of doing. But first things first, I want to mention our YouTube channel, that is EJthePodcast. You can go there to check out all kinds of draft, sealed, forge videos, as well as a little bit of constructed play, and a new recent project I'm starting on, which is Singleton Sundays, where we're going to be doing 100 card Singleton matches, one best of one, very similar to EDH or Commander for any of you that play Magic the Gathering. So just check it out there. If you can't catch our live stream, you can see all our drafts there and learn a little something. All right, so I want to introduce a co-host I have this week. That's right, I actually have a co-host. He's a friend of mine that's recently picked up Eternal and is very interested in continue to play it. So he's decided to come on the podcast and kind of give you guys a little bit of his point of view. And I want to welcome on the show Tanklin. How you doing, brother?
Hey Jedi, how's it going, man? Going good here. Thanks for having me on. Hopefully I can bring some noob insight and help others understand.
Hey man, we all have to start somewhere. I have no doubt that you will have plenty of knowledge to pass on to people, and at the very least kind of help skew the learning curve in their favor.
Yes.
All right, guys, like all podcasts, we're going to go ahead and start off with our pack one, pick one, where we're going to crack open a pack of the most recent set and kind of go over the potential draft picks as if it was in the first pick of a draft. So we are on set 5, which is Defiance. So in a typical draft, you will open up a Defiance pack, then two, I think, legendary seeded packs or historical packs, which are generic from the other 4 sets, and then finish with the 4th pack being a Defiance. So cracked open a pack here, sent it over to Tanklin, so he has it in front of himself as well, and we're going to go ahead and discuss it, starting with the commons. We have Sirocco Glider. It is a 2/5 Serpent for 4 and a time. And when you have a relic, it has flying. I think this card is great. It's a solid body. 2/5 is really good in this format. It blocks quite a bit, and the fact that it has 2 power still as it gets in there. Time is one of the relic matters colors and factions, so quite often this thing can get flying, which makes it a huge body in the air. 5 toughness in the air is just ginormous, really hard to have anyone kind of get in there through that without using a combat trick or something like that. So this is definitely a front runner for a first pick. Have you had any experiences with the glider yourself, Tanklin?
Against them, yes, and from what I've learned, you're exactly right. That something about 5 health always gives me a hard time, and two attacks enough to kill stuff. Usually I'm running like a cheaper, light, quick kind of deck. So those things are, I would say, yeah, a good pick because they're always giving me a problem.
Right on. Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Rotor Smith. This is a 2/2 Tinker for 3 and a green, and it has Empower. You gain 1 armor. I think this card's a filler. A 2/2 for 3, you're already kind of overcosted, and the Empower ability isn't really that great. It is in a faction that cares about relic weapons, but it's not going to beat out the glider. So we're still front runner glider. Next up, we have Token of Vision. It is a depleted power, and it is a tri-faction. So you can choose between a time, justice, or shadow influence. These are fine. They're great fixing, especially it kind of tells you what factions the set kind of wants you to go in. But taking one first pick is just very undervalued. Like, you have a way better chance of picking these up a little bit later, mid-pack maybe, once you have a better idea of what factions you're going to be in. So definitely not a first pick. Let's see, moving on. Next up, we have Cabal Scavenger. This is a 1/2 Gunslinger Rogue for 1 and a shadow. It has lifesteal, and when you play a relic, Cabal Scavenger deals 1 damage to the enemy player. I am very low on 1-drops. I feel like you have to have something really impressive to make me want to spend one of my 2 or 3 slots for a 1/2. The lifesteal on 1 just isn't enough. It dies to a lot of things, and really, at best, in most relics matters decks, you might be playing 3, maybe 4 relics. So this thing at best is triggering only twice. I just don't feel like it's impacting the board enough, especially if you draw it late in the game. What do you think, Tanklin?
Yeah, with the last thing you said there, I like anything that has an extra attack in life from 1. So if it's a 3 and it's a 3/4, or even a cost 3 for a 3/3, you feel like you're breaking even with an extra with life steal. But again, it only has 1 attack. Life steal is nice if you can pump it with other things, but it's not gonna do much. And then get in your way later on in the game.
Yeah, I agree. Well put. Next up, we have Be Gone, which is a spell for 1 at a time. It put unit into owner's hand, gain a shadow or a justice. So this card I've actually come up on a little bit. I rated it a little low in my set review because of the fact that it was regular speed and not fast spell. But the fact that there's so many good equipments and weapons in this game, where people are very often in Kasul, some form of fire or justice deck, and they have tons of weapons to slap on their units. This actually does make a big difference, bouncing something that they might have paid 4 or 5 for, and then put another like 3, 4, 5 weapon on it. It's a huge tempo play for just 1 power, and the fact that it kind of pseudo fixes your influence goes a long way. So I do like Be Gone. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it just costing 1 and putting something back in the other player's hand. Again, like late game, this will be nice to have late game, and it just costs so you could have, even if you have 6, you could put down a cost 5, and then have 1 to throw out here and get something out of your way, and extra you gain either your justice or shadow. So I think it gives you extra room there and something out of your way if you're going for that kind of control.
So would you take it over Glider, or is Glider still the first pick?
Right. That 5 life is really nice. I'd probably still stay with the glider.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd still stay on the Glider. I think you pick up a Be Gone 1, or you really don't want any more than like 2 in your deck. I think you could pick those up later on fairly easily. Yeah. Next up, we have Steely Resolve, which is a fast spell for 0, 1 primal influence. Negate an enemy spell with cost of 1 or less. So of note, this card does stop Torch. It does stop Finest Hour, which are 2 of the big heavy hitters in the format. That being said, though, I think it is extremely narrow, and I really don't want to be putting it on my deck if I can help it.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yep, still Glider. Ooh, here we go. Here's another front runner. This one, you gotta let me know which one you think. So this is Infused Guardian. This is a 4/4 Sentinel for 5 at a time. It has Endurance, it has Pledge, and it has Empower +1/+1, period. So every time you play a sigil, this thing just continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. What do you think about this card, Tanklin?
I don't see how it's an uncommon. Haven't been too excited about Pledge, and I've heard you talk about Pledge and like it a lot, and I think that's just because I haven't got to a level where I've noticed its value. But Endurance, I think, is really great, and Empower I love, especially if you have anything that's you're drawing cards quickly for. But it's I mean, it's a 4/4 cost for a 5. That's okay, but I love anything Empower +1/+1 that you can, I mean, you're gonna draw every turn, so it's gonna jump 1 more turn, and it's a 5 for a 5/5, and then Endurance, so 1 exhaust. So that's pretty good here. I don't know which one I would take though. Hmm.
All right.
I really like Empower over the Relic option, so I'd probably take this Infused Guardian.
Yeah, I would as well. I think it's fine. It's like you said, it's just the benefits of it that's pretty much good at every stage in the game. Just makes it a solid pick. So yeah, and the fact that it has Pledge means it's kind of okay to have a little few more 5 drops in your deck than you would. All right, the last common we have is Breath Stealer. This is a 5/3 Nightmare for 5 and a Shadow, and it has Pledge. That's it. Just vanilla, 5/3, and pledge. Um,
Yeah.
Nothing special. Do you have any opinions on it?
No, it's a neat looking card, but not for a 5 cost and 3 life. So, eh.
Yep, right on. Infused Guardian, the one to beat still. All right, moving into our uncommons now. Let's go ahead and take. First one is Urn of Choking Embers. It is a cursed relic for 1 and a red, and when cursed player plays a unit, exhaust it. Yeah, this is a constructed card. It works against some decks that have a lot of charge or recursion from the graveyard or from the void. Not really a thing for limited, so we're not gonna worry about it. Ooh, this one's a spicy one. All right, Display of Ambition. I think displays are absolutely great payoffs for being in a certain tricolor faction or wedge. This one it sees constructed play. That's how good it is because it typically is a 2-for-1 in some cases. So Display of Ambition is a fast spell for 3 power, 1 fire, 1 justice, 1 shadow. So Wind Chest. And it has 3 modes. You can select one of them. First mode is your units get +1 and overwhelm permanently. Or you can draw 2 units from your void and take 2 damage. Or you can kill an enemy unit with 5 health or more. I think this card is great. It's fantastic. All the modes see play in some form or fashion. Primarily use it for the draw 2 units from your void, but it can also be a kill spell that's efficient. The problem I have with this is taking a tricolor card for pack 1 makes it very risky. Like you're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket. There's a good chance you may not play it because one of the factions might be closed off to you, or 2, or even all 3 of them. So as good as a display is, I'm kind of hesitant to take it pack 1, pick 1. What do you think?
Yeah, in this situation, still from my experience that I have, anytime I see a tri-faction with, 3 colors going on, I get like, oh, there's too much going on there. Why would you want to wrestle with 3 colors? But I know obviously things like this make it worth it. But in this situation, it's safer to keep it with 2, especially on the beginning of picking out cards. So
Yeah, good call. All right, and our last one comment, I'll let you take the reins on this one. This is Tunneling Gargantua. It is a 5/5 worm for 8 power. 1 time, 1 primal. It has killer, it has pledge, and then it has bonus text. Give it plus attack plus health equal to the cost of your highest cost relic. So what are your thoughts on this one, Tank?
so with it being just the bonus attack in life equal to the cost of your highest relic, you would need a base. I would think a base your deck based around relics for it to really gain its full potential here. But a 8 cost, and it's one of each of those factions, time and primal. So not only do you have to have 8, you have to make sure you have both of those. Which by then, if you're around 8, I would assume you would have both if your deck is based around that.
Yeah, correct.
But it's only 5/5. If you really like killer, it's useful. But I don't think with the pledge added, it warrants the 8 cost.
All right,
So
cool.
it's it's a neat card if you know you're gonna have some relics in there. That would obviously jump up the attack and the life worth, probably the 8 cost of it, but that's a really high cost, and I I wouldn't take it yet.
I agree with you. Of note, like you mentioned, you will have the both influences by the time you get to 8. That being said, there is a good chance that you're also going to have a relic in play. It is in the factions that heavily rely on relics. One of them being primal. The Frost Talisman is really good. A lot of decks play it because it's stun. That's 2, making this guy a 7/7. So something to consider, but I definitely agree. I don't think I'd take it pick 1. I think I'd want to see it closer to pick 3, 4, 5, when I kind of have an idea where I'm going.
Okay,
All right.
okay, yeah.
So Infused Guardian still the front runner in the pack, and we have our rare. Our rare is Dread. It is 4 and a 1 nightmare for 4 power, double time, double shadow. It has charge, lifesteal, and pledge. And at the end of the turn, sacrifice Dread. Then draw another unit from your void. So essentially you can get in there, get an 8-point life swing if they have no defenders, because it hits them for 4, they lose 4, we gain 4. And then if it does not die, it has to stay alive. Granted, it says at the end of the turn, sacrifices. So If it dies in combat, you don't get the recursion. Of note, it also says draw it. So the unit it replaces goes back into your hand. It doesn't get cheated onto the battlefield. What do you think?
Right. I have read this card before and seen it, and it didn't it didn't click to me what the use of it was. Like, wow, it has 1 life. What's the deal? It's just gonna die if it has charge, you attack, you get 4 life. But now knowing a little more, I see that um if it doesn't die from combat, like you're saying, and you sacrifice it, so putting into your void, then you draw another unit from your void. So is it saying another, like you can't pick it, or is it pretty much like you attack with it at the end of your turn, you put it in your void and you pretty much can pick it out if you want of your void?
No, it says another unit. It has to be something else. So essentially, what you want to do with this is either play it on an open board, if like for example you're both in a top deck war, or play it in a position where you have a combat trick or something to make sure it wins combat, so you get a big life swing.
Okay.
And then you get a unit back. Rarely are you going to be playing this on curve because one of the influence requirements, but two, the fact that like
Yeah.
you're if you're playing it on 4, what do you get back? Like a scorpion or a spider or something. It's just not giving you the payoff that you want. So yeah, I'm not very high on Dread either. I think it might be more of a constructed card, if that. There's no constructed decks that I see playing it.
Okay.
So I definitely think our pack one pick one for this one is going to be Infused Guardian with a runner up of Sirocco Glider. What do you think?
I believe so, and that's pretty neat to say that that's 2 commons that are the picking here those the best choices just from, life and summon power.
Yeah,
Pretty neat.
and I mean that's the way limited goes. That's why sometimes it's fun and sometimes it's very deceiving. You can make a good deck or make a bad deck sometimes based on the kind of cards that you pick up. And like granted, if this was pack 3 or 4 or and Display of Ambition came around, I would probably take that as a signal that the people to our right were not drafting one or two of those factions.
Right,
But
okay.
opening up, the pack, you have no idea what anyone's taking yet, so you just kind of want to take the best card that leaves you as open as possible. So yeah, not bad, man. Well
Good to
done.
know.
All right.
Alright.
So with that, let's go ahead and get crack-a-lackin' on our main topic, which is climbing the ladder, and for newer people, grinding Gauntlet, which we'll go a little more in depth later on once Tanklin gets a little more experience on it. But we will touch on it some now because it is important. I still grind Gauntlet for multiple reasons. It lets me test standard decks without having to wait in queues. It also lets you generate okay income and return on investment, and then sometimes you just have quests for completing gauntlets. So why we do the ladder climb? So first off, right off the bat, it is bragging rights. Even if you're not bragging with your friends, you yourself can say, hey, I made this rank, so I am better than X amount of people, and you
Right.
kind of feel good about yourself. It's a little bit of a reward for putting the time in and playing competitively, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think whether people like to accept it or not, you like competition, and you like to feel, if you level up, you feel leveled up and you've gotten better at something. So it's a way to kind of prove that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the baseline why we do it. On the back of that, you have a skill check. It's a good way, within reason. Like obviously, it's not foolproof. You can't say, "Well, you're this rank, so this is how good you are, how bad you are." But it is a skill check to kind of gauge where potentially your collection might be in reference to everyone else, but also where your skill level is developing. If you're a good drafter or bad drafter, or if you're getting better at standard and learning the decks and stuff like that, you start to kind of see that your win ratio starts to increase. And honestly, all you need to do to climb is have above 50% win ratio. So if you're
Yeah.
58% win, you will still climb the ladder. So it's not an impossible thing of like when you feel like you're losing a bunch of games that there's no way you can climb. You just have to have a slightly better win ratio than you're losing. And so that is a good base to check your skill set in a slightly more definitive way. Have
Yeah,
you
definitely,
seen
definitely.
have you seen a difference in the way you play from maybe your first couple of weeks to now?
Yeah, first, I like card games. I played, here and there, a little bit of Magic, other things when I was younger, and I like strategy games in general. And card games just because and like these are like Hearthstone that are faster pace, and you feel like they're easier, and you get into it and you realize it's there's way more layers to it and things you can understand. I've always had I just go to like life, and that's usually the positive angelic light looking whatever that kind of card game will have. But for some reason, I always try to go towards, well, if I have enough life, that'll that that I'll outlive them, or they can't kill me if I have more life. And that always works for like a little bit, but it draws the games out longer, and I end up losing anyway, and not necessarily having too much fun. So I usually change from my like stuff of gaining life and healthy monsters and things like that to what what I heard from earlier podcast of yours of kind of have like in aggro, and we have a friend of ours that I know in her magic kind of style. That's like all she like anything with like fire and dragons and stuff and quick attacking. That's kind of what they do, and I've heard that's fun to do. And it's also like a well, I'm not gonna do that because other people do that. But so I started off first doing like the life thing and try to be healthy and just outlive them, but not really fight back and have fun. And that's what I realized. And now that I've changed over to oh, let me be fancy. I think it's Felon. It's
Hmm.
the fire and shadow. What's that?
Yes. No, that is Stone Scar.
Stone Scar. That's it. Darn. That's the primal and shadows. I think.
Yes, correct.
Aha. Okay. So first I had tried a Stone Scar kind of deck, and that kind of clicked and gave me the idea for it. So I went to and made my own fire and shadow deck, and it's way more fun you'd say, and I've won a little bit more too. So I'm just kind of picking around that and refining it, and it's been better.
Nice, sweet. Yeah, let's go a little more in depth. Well, on that, yeah. So, what did you start off with? Did you start with one of the kind of decks that they started to build, that they gave you, through the tutorials, or did you like pick up one of the starter decks, or did you just kind of make up your own deck from the get go?
Right. So yeah, so you run through all the I had to run through all the basic starter decks of each color, and then it came up. I don't know if it goes in that order, uh, or if it just happened to be what was next for me. But it showed had some quests to do. Quest for that Stone Scar deck. Here's a theme deck is what they call it. So I played that for a little bit, and I tried just the sands. Again,
Yeah, time.
I saw stuff there that had like gained 5 life and everything like that, and I kind of realized after that I like the Stone Scar more. So I started with that, and I do like using those. I think I would assume you don't get like the theme decks anymore because you've probably ran through all the theme decks that the combinations of different uh what's it not clans or mixtures of the powers because it gives me the quest to try those.
Mm-hmm.
But so I like to try those with Gauntlet because it usually gives me win 5 games with this deck. So I go to Gauntlet and play those and try them out. But that's what I started off for a while was using that Stone Scar deck, and then just pretty much made my own deck, but took that same idea and changed it and added. And as I got it, getting better cards in my deck and everything, inventory, I kind of tuned it up better of what I think is better now.
Yeah, and that's part of the fun, honestly. In all retrospect, that's kind of why they give you those decks. They kind of show you a theme. They're like, "Hey, give this a shot," and you end up kind of getting a flavor for all the factions and the combinations of colors. And when you start to see like, okay, this is kind of how I like to play, you can kind of build on that, you know. And
Yeah, I've
so,
started to. I can see when I go against somebody now,
mhm.
and that's kind of what I use it too. Is I may not like this deck, but I'll know what I'm going against. So if I see someone pull out these colors, oh hey, I've played that theme deck, and I know that they're gonna have some flying and some. If I attack, they can kill me with the fastball kind of cards, like primal stuff. I think it was. Um, so that's what I like doing those too. If I have one, I'll try it out, and that way it gives me an idea that it never crossed my mind. Like, oh, I'm not gonna do that, but I play it. I'm like, oh, I see why this is good, and I also see what I can do to fight against it.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things I think people kind of forget to realize as well, and why I like testing all the different decks, because of the fact that like sometimes you'll understand how you're supposed to play a deck, but until you actually play against it, you or play with it, I'm sorry, you really learn how the deck works, and you have a better understanding of how to beat it.
Yes, yeah, exactly, and that's what's something else I've picked up that I've learned, to realize. It helps me just realize what I could be going up against in the future, as far as waiting to attack, or if I have a card with ambush, or if I know they're gonna kind of go around a certain, um, what's the word? If they have a lot of life steal or something, or flying or whatnot, I can kind of expect it. So it helps you plan ahead
Hmm.
of time to either hurry your game up, or save some fast spells or something.
So do you have any pet cards right now that you're really a fan of and you love playing?
Yes. I'll say it correct. I won. I guess it was just from a gold chest. I'm not sure what I got it from, but it's a card called Light the Fuse, and it's a one cost. I'm not sure if it's what's it called? What's the I think it's from Empty Throne. Yeah, it's from Empty Throne. But that's one that I won. It's a legendary card, and then I figured out that you could use your, what are they called? Little stones, the
Shift
shift
stone.
stones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to double a card. As I was learning through, I was like, well, I like this card. Um, so I just doubled that one, and it really helps with that aggro, like fire
Oh,
fast.
nice. Congrats. Yeah, that's always
Yeah, yeah,
a good feeling whenever you're like, yeah, getting your first legendary is always exciting, especially when it's a good legendary that you can use. And then it's like when you
yeah.
find out, you're like, wait, I can make more cards. You like that's one of the first things you always want to do. Like that's essentially what I did. I don't think I ever crafted a rare until they were must have rares that like I just never saw anywhere else. Other than that, I would always end up just saving my stuff to get the next legendary to get me up there, and then I would always just make 3 of them because I didn't want to run the chance of like opening up a legendary that I crafted 4 of, and then having to
Oh,
dust it.
thanks. See that? Yeah, I never thought about that. Is This is one because it's the first card that I kind of like looked into and tried to change my card game lifestyle. I actually tried to have some strategy and build it around this, and so I'm kind of going with the aggro stuff, fast and kind of quick. Um, and I wanted to get your opinion on the card because, like I said, I had it. I thought it was cool, so I made another one. Then I was like, "Is it that cool? I don't even know. I haven't seen one before." But uh, so so the card is Light the Fuse, and it's a one cost,
Mm-hmm.
1 power. It's 1 fire, and it puts 5 fire bombs into the enemy deck.
Okay.
And the fire bombs have destiny, and they deal 5 damage to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, you throw these 5 bombs in their deck, and
Yeah, and they're
throughout
grenades.
the game, yeah, they'll draw it randomly, and they do 5 damage to themselves. Well, that's cool because you start off with 25 lives, so you put in the potential for them to kill themselves. So that was my idea with it. So I have 2 of those, so I can put like 50, worth of damage into their hands while I'm kind of poking them with ones and torches and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So
the main
here's
idea.
here's the trick to that though. In the games you've played, how many of them have gone off on your opponent? Like on average, what you think? Like guesstimate. Like I know it's a little hard to tell sometimes, but like in a guesstimation, um,
Uh, let's see. Lately, I've been using another uh theme deck more to try to finish some quests. But if I can get both, especially if I have one in the first hand, I've had 4 go off. I think maybe 5. No, yeah, I think 4 was one time. So it was 20 damage, total. And I can't remember if they were healing themselves or not, but it was useful. I think it ended one, and they had like 2 life left, and yeah, and I won. But and I wanted to ask you too. Do you know if because I was thinking it would base around if I'm trying to get them to draw these cards,
mm-hmm.
if I have a card that makes them draw, I can't remember the name of the card. There's a shadow card, and it's like they discard the top 5 or 8 cards. I think it might be Impending Doom, but um, if they draw it like that to discard, if it's still drawn, does Destiny activate, or will it just go like trash to the void?
If it goes straight to the void, then it will not trigger. If it goes to their hand, if they draw it, then it will trigger.
Ah, okay, perfect. See, that's something I was wondering too, because I thought that would be the way to build that around if we're building around this card, but I did not know exactly that. I was like, oh, I'll get cards that make them draw or discard cards, but will that activate the card or not? So it won't. So that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah. The only problem is that sometimes you gotta be careful because like there's actually a card that does the inverse of that, where it's called Cauldron Cookbook, where you draw a card you draw an extra card, but at the cost of putting a firebomb in your deck.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's something to consider because of the fact that like what I'm saying is that it's not as big of a drawback as you think it is based on like what you're trying to get out of it, if that makes sense.
Okay, and that card gives you
So
5
that
or something else.
it gives you,
above?
yeah, you pay 2 power or 3, I can't remember now, it's been a second. Let me look it up real quick. Hold on.
But it gives you something in return, but you put it in your own.
So
your own
yeah,
deck is what you're saying?
you pay 3. Okay, so it's a relic. You place the relic on yourself like a relic weapon, and then you pay
Right.
once per turn. You can pay 3 power, and it puts a firebomb into your own deck, but you draw a card. And a lot of decks were running that because of the fact that they realized that in a 75 card deck, like putting somewhere between 3 to let's say 6 firebombs in your deck, like it was kind of pseudo
Okay.
worth doing, if that makes sense.
Right. Probably not going to, before the game's ended or what you're trying to get out of it, you probably won't draw
Yeah.
that card.
So
Okay.
I think in limited, the Light Diffuse is fantastic because of the fact that you have only 45 cards to deal with. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I think it's something to consider when you're playing in Constructed. Just because, like I said, the now you're talking about a 75 card deck. Now, granted, in Constructed, there is a higher chance for people to potentially draw extra cards.
Okay.
So it's just something to consider. I think it has benefits to it, especially if you're pushing them, like if you're pressuring their life total, then you really only need 1 or 2 to hit to win the game.
Right. And that was my idea behind it. It's like
Yeah.
it's more kind of insurance if I'm already trying to go for that quick damage, kind of get underneath them before anything happens, and it's like they start fighting back, and oh hey, they draw 1 or 2, and it's maybe that wins it for me, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, plus the benefit of it only costing 1 means that it could fit pretty much anywhere on your curve, and you're not really losing too much to do it. So.
Yeah. All right. Good to know. Good feedback.
Let's see. So, what kind of decks have you seen yourself kind of going up against on the ladder?
I have found.
Well, hold
when I
on.
kinda
First
run
off,
with the
where are you at on the ladder? Let's do that part. So, what rank are you at right now?
the highest I got, I think it just reset, but the highest I got was almost bronze 1. I
Okay.
think so. I just played a handful off and on, and then like I said, I try to do the forge with the theme decks to knock those out. So when I played theme, I almost got to bronze 1, but I'm back to 3 because I think right with the month it restarted with the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, correct. It restarts every month.
Yeah. But and I was gonna ask you about this. If this happens, there's a common thing. So if you win 3 in a row, are you more likely to go against somebody that has also won 3 in a row? Because it seems like every time I win about 4 games, the 5th one, I just get destroyed. Like, and
I'll
they have card backs and all fancy looking stuff, and I just get whooped.
I'll be completely honest with you. I have no idea. Probably some statistician somewhere has done the math on it or run the numbers.
Right, some kind of algorithm.
Yeah, I really think it's just random because like where I'm at, once I get to Masters, I will say that it tends to pair you with people of a similar rank. But that, like, for example, if you're like in rank 1 of a certain rank, you'll only go against like rank 2, rank 1, and then rank 3 of the rank above you. if that makes sense.
Okay.
So if you're like in silver 1, then you might see gold 3, silver 1, and silver 2.
Okay. Right. Okay.
But I
Uh,
can't guarantee, because I have seen, like, for example, when I'm in masters, like, you get an actual numbered rank, and I've been 400, gone up against 1,200, and I've gone up against like 65. So I think it's not necessarily your win ratio. I think it's just who's kind of playing in the queues in that, like, in the
okay.
range that they
Right. They
have.
can only pick through what they have available. Who's ever playing, and they're like, here you go. It's your lucky day. Or sorry, this guy's probably going to beat you. But I'm sure they tried it. They have it. Direwolf has it set up where you probably have the best to keep it competitive and fair. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean,
Uh,
and that's the great thing about card games like this when they have a level of relevance is that, or variance, is that anyone can win on any game. Your opponent can get power screwed or power flooded, or like there's a good matchup where your deck just smashes the deck they're playing, or
yeah.
I mean, there's just so many reasons. So like any given day, anybody can beat anybody else, and I think that's a little bit of the frustration, but also some of the appeal to games like this, where there's so much variance that no two games are exactly the same, regardless of what you do to make that happen. Versus like in chess, you're kind of playing the same game over and over again.
Right. Yeah. Very good. And to I think answer the other or part of your question, maybe just the question in general. For like what I've ran into,
Mm-hmm.
I have noticed lately it's been some life force, and this is the first time I've started to see life force in card details. I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's a effect or ability. But before that, it's been a lot of like uh, empower to pumping. Like and I remember this card specifically because I saw two people do it, and they both kind of did the same thing. They waited and had a bunch of cards and stuff built up, and one person had them down to like 6 life, and they came back and destroyed me. And I think I took a screenshot of it to send to you. I don't think I ever did, but I think he had like 68 health
Oh wow.
and something else. And what was based off was like this legendary soldier to loot Queen's Hand. He's
Oh
like a
yeah, yeah.
7
Mm-hmm.
cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's a pile.
Yeah.
And so they'll be able to throw like 2 of those out and like play a card, put a +3/+3, a weapon
Gem
or
blade. Mm-hmm.
bonus to this card over here, and this card over here is that like the legendary Shadow Girl. Anyway,
Vara.
but it's for someone with life steal.
Yeah, Vara.
So they yes pump her up a whole lot, and she hits me a couple times, and they're obviously back in the game up to 6 something, and then she's the other effect or something with flying or whatnot, and just I'm like, what is going on? Like they attack or whatever to get going, and all their cards start going off and flashing. It's like boom, plus this, here's your life, plus
Mm-hmm.
boom, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And that's what I've noticed for sure is like the biggest. Anytime I see that, it's like they know what they're doing, and yeah, that Talut Queen guy just comes in and helps everybody else they have, and they just destroy me.
Let me double check right now, but I actually think you can get both those cards out of the same campaign. So $10 can get you those cards.
Ah,
I'll be honest
gotcha.
with you, the first campaign I did was the one to get Vara because I was just getting decimated by her in the ladder. I was like, yep, they're both in the Into the Shadow campaign, which I definitely think you should do. There's a ton of good cards in there to include the cookbook, the Vara that you're talking about, and Tell It, Queen's Hand. So I
Mm,
highly recommend to our listeners as well, if you guys have not done the campaigns, at the very least do the Into the Shadow, which is the most recently released one. I don't remember it being that challenging, which is a little disappointing. Obviously, if you're going to play against the computer, you want it to be challenging and kind of work your brain. But
right.
you do get Cauldron Cookbook out of it. You get Vara, Vengeance Seeker. You get Poaching Drake, which is not bad. And then Tell It's Queen's Hand. So Vara and Tell It alone make it worth doing. And if you're kind of the go big Sentinel type of person, Waystone Titan is in there as well. They're all fantastic cards to get add to your collection. If you're the more aggressive deck, the Signal Flare is a solid pickup. Shakedown is great for control decks. Maul is a very efficient. Actually, that might be a deck I'll turn you on to after the podcast. The Maul Shadow Time Maul deck is pretty impressive and pretty aggressive. And I'll just read Maul out to you. Maul is a spell, uncommon spell for 6 power, 1 primal. and it deals 2 damage to the enemy player for each card in their hand. So it absolutely decimates control decks. The ones that try to keep 6, 7, 8 cards in their hands at all time, that thing just does a ridiculous amount of damage to them.
Nice.
So the whole point of that deck is to like sneak in somewhere between 8 to 12 damage before they kind of stabilize, and then play them all on 6 and just finish their opponent off. So
I see that. Okay.
Yeah, so that, and I believe that deck only requires, well, it's 8 legendaries, which is a little non-budget. Typically, I think a budget deck would only have somewhere between 2 to 4 legendaries and then a bunch of rares. But I think one of the legendaries is pseudo replaceable versus one is not. But like I said, I'll talk to you about it off key.
Okay.
I'll send you the link to them. We can discuss it a little bit and see if that's kind of the gameplay you want to take. Let me see real quick. Since you're on Stone Scar, I believe there's, I think the pig, let me double check. There's a removal spell that I feel like if you are Stone Scar. All right, so do you have Combust? Combust is a very solid removal spell for your colors.
I'm not sure. It's a removal card though?
Yeah, you have to sacrifice a unit to kill one of theirs, but it only costs 1.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's really good. It's a really solid removal spell. A lot of people combo it off with either Madness, or actually, yeah, they just combo it with Madness. So Madness is 3 power for a regular spell that you get to steal your opponent's unit for 1 turn. So the combo with it is that you Madness their biggest unit, and you either attack with it or you don't, based on whether you think it's going to survive or not. And then use Combust to destroy that creature while you have, or that unit while you have it on your side, and then destroy their next best creature. So you essentially destroy 2 of their cards for 1.
Yeah. Okay.
Another combo you can use with it is just have a lot of Grenadins, like cards that give you more than 1 unit. So instead of using 2 cards to kill one, you're using like a card and a half or a card and a third to destroy one of their units.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, my first kind of deck with it that is what I built that around. I got that idea exactly from the Stone Scar was the Grenadins, and I had what's it called? It was it's a shadow card, but it's sacrifice a card and you gain 2 life, and I think draw a card maybe.
Yeah, you draw 2 cards. Yes, that also works with Madness as well. That's the other combo.
Okay, and that's kind of what I was playing with, and I named the deck Give and Take because it was pretty much had a bunch of Grenadins for meat shields and for sacrificing, and I would use like Combust to kill one of them, or that exact thing, sacrifice, and had a lot of cards that had Entomb. So the same situation whenever one would die, and then still something would happen, or they'd take 3 damage from the other Grenadin card. I can't remember, but okay. Neat.
Well played, man. I like that. I definitely like the that you're already starting to see some of the combos and synergies and stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying that. This is a problem I've had with like I said kind of at the beginning, was other card games I play and I'm like, oh, this is fun, and then I play other people, and then I realize after we all play for a little bit, and like you actually have to think about things and have a strategy. It's not just I had the mindset that, well, why does it matter if I have a good deck or not, and an idea, because I could just get power flooded, or this could happen, or whatever else. But it's on the same side as them as well. So that just goes to show, if you have a well-made deck, then you have a well-made deck that can be played anytime with the outcome. So it's not like you shouldn't have the idea of having a deck that, oh, if I get these exact cards, then I'll win. It should be, I know cumulatively, if I get this or this, that I have a good outcome of getting a win because of the strategy, not just because of a chance you have with a couple cards you think work together.
Yeah, it and there are some decks that play like that. Those type of combo decks are a thing as well. It just kind of it just kind of depends, you know what I mean, on what you're trying to accomplish, so to speak.
Okay.
Um, yeah, that's the best way I could put it.
All right, yeah, learning learning left and right here. I'm trying to, like I said, it get get more in touch with it and not just play a thing. I think way back, I think Halo ruined me back when I played Halo because it was you had shields and that was the first game I really got into. So I would always just go in guns blazing and hope for the best. And I've took that like mentality to any other games, and now that I don't play shooters, I like strategy and cards and or board games. It's like you cannot do that in these kind of games. You have to think about a strategy and go in with some kind of you know knowledge of what's going to happen and prepare like for a card game. So I'm learning as we go here.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's part of the fun. To be completely honest with you, I really enjoy like um just the creativity of it, of where you can, the deck building aspect of it, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
I don't know, I can't explain it other than that. I just really like the ability to customize the kind of game that you want to play.
Yeah, and that's something that's changes me as again as I thought. Well, just some cards together and you put them and you might win and you know this guy has a lot of attack and you know like this, but having a like I said, I kind of learned from a couple episodes and from us talking about uh like aggro decks, just like okay, well, it's stuff that's just aggressive. Well, I never thought of well, what is it? So it's fun to actually play that with stuff that's like you know in their face, boom, 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 attack, or um, you know I've heard of control decks, but that's something I've never really figured out to do. So that may be something that I actually may like. You know, it's so there is totally different. It's not like you know these things, but to actually try to put them in effect does change the game, and it can make you, you know, understand it and therefore like it and do better in many things. So it's just you know experience, and you know you'll get a lot more out of it.
Yeah, there are so many archetypes and then so many subtypes of those archetypes and ways to create that you really can, you should try playing everything to figure out what it really appeals to you. You know, there are those kind of decks like you'd mentioned where you're trying to put 2 or 3 cards together to win the game. And you know, I'll try to do that with you as well. As we duel each other online, I'll try to put together different types of decks and archetypes to play against you to see if any of those kind of speak out to you or not. And as you start to build your collection, you can play around with them. Because yeah, it just, you never know. Like, you know, obviously you want to have your low to the ground aggro deck because you're able to sneak in more game time because you're either gonna win fast or lose fast. You're able to kind of go underneath certain deck strategies to get there. And then
Yes.
you know, it helps you, i.e. the more you win, the more money you generate, the more gold you generate, you're able to win more cards that lets you play more decks. It's kind of like one of those things, you know, it's a picking order, so to speak. um you know, unless you're willing to do certain things like buy some packs and things like that, which I think is perfectly okay as well, based on the type of person. You know, a lot of people stress about wanting to be free to play, or like, I haven't spent a dime in this game. Well, that's great, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing if you do spend it, you know.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
just
If you like it, do it. Yeah.
exactly, it's what you're comfortable with. And then, you know, there's everything in between. Just because you spend $20 on this game doesn't mean you're on par with those people that spend $300. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Like, for example, right now, you know, you can get I think it's $30 gets you 30 packs, so $1 pack. You know, that's digitally better than anything you would get in real life. You know, like magic packs are $4 a pack. So
Right. Right.
you know, and the thing with magic packs is that the second you open them, you lose value. You know, like
Yeah.
whatever's in it is what in it. Versus in this game, you can take whatever you don't want, you could stone it and turn it directly into something that you do want. So
Right.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
so
And
you
they
know,
don't have the risk of them getting torn up or lost or anything.
yeah, exactly. You know, like, let me see real quick these theme decks. Let me see what the Felm one looks like. Or Stone Scar, sorry. I just want to take a look real quick. All right, so we have Chaotic Combat and we have Grenadin Workshop are the two. Let me make sure.
Is
Yeah,
the
wow,
summon 3 grenades? I
Yeah,
believe.
so let me see. Okay, so Grenadin Workshop, I'm almost positive probably going to be the sack one. Let me see. So you get Stone Scar Scrapper, which is great. Scrap Heap, you're going to have charge. Once per turn, you may pay 5 to give you 1 Grenadin. That's okay. Kill an enemy unit if Devious Drone dies. That's not bad, especially if you have the sack. So yeah, see there, if you combo that with Combust, you're essentially paying 5 power to destroy 2 of your opponent's best units. So that's not bad. Topple Tower. Let me see. Scrap Pound. So yeah, it's not too bad. The Grenadin one I think is okay. It's not extremely amazing, but you get some value, and it's a decent way to build your collection. Let me see what
Right,
the
right,
other one. Let
okay.
me see what the Chaotic Combat one looks like. Let's see. You get Kyrex Coach Driver, which I think is great. Any of the Inspire cards are solid. Dashing Rapscallion, that's kind of funny. I've opened so many of those. Stone Scar Pickaxe, meh, and Thieves Pick. So this one seems a little better for us opening, because you get stuff like let me see, where is it? Rapid Shot is good. Xenon Life Speaker is good. Drifter, so Corrupted Umbran. So you actually, it looks like this one is a little bit more user friendly as far as climbing the ladder initially, but both these decks are just a base. I think, let me look at the Yeti one. The Yeti one's probably the best starting one, honestly.
Oh,
Just because Yeti Skycrag is let's see. Well, this one's not the one. I thought there was one of them. They gave you the champion. This one does not, unless they modified it so you don't get it anymore, because it does have 2 mortars in it, which is a good card. Let me see what the other Yeti or the other
it's
Skycrag
so
one looks like.
it's so funny as I'm here, and I know other listeners in kind of my same chair that were kind of learning and picking up about Eternal, and I hear what you're saying. I'm like, oh yeah, that thing. I think I've heard of that. And it's like all this knowledge. Like I wish my brain was a sponge right now so I could soak it up. And then you talk about Yetis, and I was like, oh, I know about Yetis. They make snowballs. That's like the only thing I thought of. I was like the little things. Yeah, you get a snowball, you can throw at them and it does 1 damage. And like, oh, I guess they're better than that. Like I don't.
Yeah, well,
Like,
it
oh yeah,
actually
lots to
comes
learn.
it actually comes in handy quite a bit, to be perfectly honest with you, because there are other cards that pump up your spells. So a lot of the times you can make it to where the snowballs deal 2 damage instead of 1. But also, and that's something you'll learn later on in your career, is the fact that uh, any one card that makes you 2 cards is better than it seems, because you're going up on card advantage on your opponent. So, for
Ah,
example, Jotun Cyclops is a 4/3 for 4, which is serviceable, right? And it has Overwhelm, which is good. But
okay.
Spark, create a snowball. So, essentially, you're getting a free spell if you happen to damage your opponent that turn. So, that actually makes it a lot better. Especially, have you dealt with any merchants yet? Or smugglers?
I don't think so. Not personally, but I think I've gone against them. Do they, when they're played, is like a tent pop up and some stuff fly out of it?
Yeah, correct. So you know how Magic has a sideboard in between games. Well, what Eternal did, because they were best of one and you don't get a sideboard in between games, they created the market mechanic where you could place 5 cards outside the game, still in your deck, just outside the game. And using a merchant or a smuggler, you can trade a card in your hand for one of the cards in your market.
Oh, okay.
So
Neat.
so essentially you can have like 5 sideboard cards in your market, so you can get them later based on the matchup that you have. You can trade like a sigil for a specific card, or, and that's going to be something that we'll talk about. We'll actually talk about market theory in another podcast, because that one we can go down the rabbit hole in that one. So I'm not going to go in too depth on this one. That might be the one we talk about next week. I like
Okay,
that.
perfect. Tease it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But long story short, there's a couple of theories on what cards you put in your market and how you play your market. And then there's the introduction to the black market as well that we'll
Oh wow.
discuss. But long story short, let me go back to, we digress. The Skycrag Fury starter deck is actually pretty good, and I'll tell you why. It gives you a really solid foundation actually for an aggro deck. Primarily, you have Piercing Shot, you
Okay.
have Clan Hero is not bad. You get 1 Champion of Fury, which Champion of Fury is the best card in every aggro deck. That's Skycrag. You have
Mm.
Torch. You have Snowcrust Yeti. 4 Torches is awesome. Snowcrust Yeti is great. And 2 Permafrost is solid removal. Like, it gets rid of 85% of the large creatures in there. Like Vara, for example, Permafrost is a perfect counter to her because she can't break stun, so she can't block, she can't attack, so there's no way for her to use her lifesteal.
Ah, this is perfect because literally the deck that as I said, I was kind of fine tuning my aggro. I kept the fire and the light diffuse stuff in there, and torches and whatnot, and the when you it does 2 to damage and 2 to enemy and hero. You
Piercing
said
shot.
it's like a,
Yeah, piercing shot.
yes, some of those, and then from playing um a theme deck. It was a Primal in Time, Elysian, I think. But I learned about the Static Shock card,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and um, like you said, there's a relic. It's something glass, or like I know the picture is a old guy with a monocle, and it just does +1 to your spells.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of made it's now a red a fire and primal deck, and I put in uh those those primal cards like uh the Static Shock and that +1 to your spells relic and and stun cards. For that reason, I thought if I can slow them down even more as I'm picking at them, then that should help me, be able to get into their face a little faster. So that's good to hear.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
like
just
stun.
incremental. It's just incremental value that you get. A lot of times when you're a low to the ground deck, you're kind of just trying to slow them down just enough turn after turn where you can keep sneaking in damage. So before they know it, they're too low on life and you can kind of finish them on by going over their head with burn.
Yes.
But
All
all right,
right.
brother,
Good.
we are creeping up on an hour, so I actually think we are gonna call it here. Uh, Digressed a little bit. Didn't talk about rank as much as I would have liked to, but that's okay. I don't mind. I feel like this is valuable information that people need to know, anyways, and why I liked having you on the show, so you can ask the questions that a lot of the listeners would want to ask. That being said, I do want to really quick mention as far as me climbing the ladder, I'm currently in gold, almost a diamond. I've been messing around. I streamed earlier today and just messed around with more fun decks for entertainment value than actual grinders. I have seen the most success for me with both Rakano aggro, which is red green, and Skycrag, which is blue red. That being said, I'm also one of those people where losing a couple times doesn't really bother me, especially when I know I'm signing up for it. I don't mind playing more controlly or mid-range decks. It just sometimes makes it a little more bad beat story when you go into a 20 or 15 minute or 25-minute game and still lose.
Mm.
The one thing I have been seeing, I've seen a little bit of everything. Obviously, the top tier decks. I haven't ran across very much like jank, like random stuff. Um, Not very much combo. What I have seen a lot of obviously is aggro, but the deck that's kind of stood out the most to me has been Winchest, which is Jund or red, green, purple, or Shadow Fire Justice. That deck with the Rizons and the Varas and the Zos have been pretty much the most consistent. Like I want to say I've probably come across that somewhere between 30 and 40%, which is pretty high of a representation. So if you are climbing the ladder, I would definitely consider your market cards or gearing your deck a little bit better towards those matchups. And I think that would help. But yeah, all right, that will be a show. Real quick, I wanted to congratulate you on your race today. You placed top 3, right? Top 5?
It was a yeah. It was an obstacle course race, but I got 6th. And if you make top 10, you qualify for the OCR World Championships later on in the year, the North American ones. So yeah, it was a big actual bucket list kind of thing of mine, goal going into 2019, and I did it.
Yeah,
So
knocked
off
it
to a
out
good
pretty
start.
early.
Yeah, hopefully
Sweet.
it's gonna tell the future a little bit.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, super glad. Want to congratulate you on the show. Where
Thanks,
can
sir.
people reach you at?
As far as social things, my Instagram, and that's just gonna be my full name, which is FrankColburn.OCR, or you can kind of search around OCR stuff and find me around here in Texas for sure. It's a great community too. If anyone happens to be looking into those, whole bunch of good people. if you have any information, yeah, just find me on Instagram and give me a little question, and I'd be glad to help you out.
Sweet. Awesome. Uh, for us, you can catch us at Twitter, Patreon, and YouTube, all at EJthePodcast. My personal Instagram is CaesarLebear7, where you can catch all my other stuff like my aerials, my fire, my cosplay, all the millions of things I do, kind of a jack of all trades. And then lastly,
super entertaining.
thanks. Appreciate that, man. Also, if you guys want to go ahead and catch my live streams, I try primarily to stream limited only because this is a limited focus podcast, but you do see me get on there and do constructed and ladder climb. And I just made affiliate today. So if you get on there and you sub, I will happily play your deck anywhere between 7 to 10 games. If you send me a list with, cards can feasibly play, not a deck with a bunch of legendaries I don't have or whatever. So definitely check me out at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ. And lastly, if you have any comments and complaints or suggestions for the show, you feel free to contact me at EJthePodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, I check it pretty frequently. Catch me on Twitter. I'm trying to be a lot more active about Twitter, communicate with the fan base and stuff like that. If you guys have any questions, if you want to take a picture of a draft pick and send it to me and say, what would you pick out of this or your decks? I would love to do that. I like making open thread discussions. So do that. And lastly, I want to thank Limited Resources, Marshall Sutcliffe and Luis Scott Vargas. They are the kind of MTG version of what I'm modeling this podcast after. So just wanted to give them a quick shout out in case they are listening. Tanklin, really appreciate having you on the show, man. Much obliged. Hopefully I can get you back on here again.
Yeah, yes, sir, Jed. Thank you very much, man. But I learned a lot, and I'm sure I'll learn a little more, and hopefully keep giving the insight to some up and coming Eternal fans and players to be. But I appreciate it, man. What a wealth of knowledge.
Sweet. Hopefully, actually, if you can get your, maybe we could figure out something where I have you on Skype and we do a draft together. You know what I mean? Have you on the stream or whatever.
Yeah, genius.
Sweet. All right, guys, once again, really appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you guys follow all our content because we're going to try to keep you as educated as we can as we progress. And thanks. That's a wrap. We'll see you guys next time.